Hi, this is a follow-on video. Um, Again, I'm just throwing it out there if anybody suffers from thyroid issues. Now, I've had a full thyroidectomy. It was a partial thyroidectomy about 10, 12 years ago, probably a bit longer. The swelling had got that bad. It wasn't cancerous. It was benign, but the swelling had got that bad over several years that it had actually constricted my trachea to the point where I was waking up at night gasping for breath because it just unable to breathe. Um, Eventually, I mean, I was back into a consultant for about 3 or 4 years. Um, that's another issue. Again, unfortunately, it's a modern day issue with the NHS. The last 20 years is pretty poor. But anyway, long story short, it reached a point where it had got that severe that I got rushed in for surgery, and I eventually had a partial thyroidectomy. Now, can't remember if it was left or right. All I know is the surgeon said that was the biggest thyroid he'd ever removed in his entire life. But hey, 10, 12 years passed, no aftercare. And I'd started reading up on it at a point, but not as much as I did prior to this, the other part of the thyroid being removed about 10, 12 years later during COVID. Now, I've since realised that a lot of people in the UK are iodine deficient. It doesn't matter what the doctors say. They don't even check for it. Even if you've got a thyroid condition, they won't check for it. And I would suggest if you have a thyroid issue, do your own research and get some independent help to check your iodine levels. But anyway, long story short, after about 10 or 12 years, no aftercare by any of the GPs. I was at a GP as a surgery, never got any aftercare, never had a blood test taken, not once. Anyway, my thyroid on the other side swelled up again to the point where my trachea literally went sideways in a big U, like that. And I had the same issue not being able to breathe. Now, unfortunately, this was during COVID. So I've been back into a GPs trying to get checks, scans, whatever. I ended up having to go private. And this was during COVID, by the way. I managed to get a what do they call it? Scan on my neck. And booked it the day before, came in, got offered a coffee and a biscuit, and I had the scan done, and then I was able to get it sent on the scan. And I remember distinctly the guy looking at it, and as it was scanning it, he literally went, "Oh my God," and because it had gone that bad, literally my airway had gone sideways with a swelling on the thyroid. So I got that scan sent off because I couldn't see a GP. I had to do this myself because nobody was seeing anybody during COVID. So the scan was sent off. The doctor got it, processed it to Manchester NHS, and then it got sent to a specialist as an urgent, and the file was marked urgent, big red mark on it, marked urgent. Well, again, during COVID. So private secretary for the consultant it was sent to just put it to one side. Didn't even open it, even though it was marked urgent, because according to them, during COVID, they weren't seeing anybody. So, guy, life-threatening, urgent marked, put to one side, didn't even process it. Luckily, my missus worked for a private consultant, so she's got a few contacts. So she rang them up and pressed them on it, and one of the nurses went in and got the file out, and it was like, oh shit, yeah, this is marked urgent. I was thinking, and it had just gone there, processed, put to one side. So it got marked urgent. It got sent to the consultant. Within a day, I was getting a phone call to come in immediately. I got sent to the same consultant. And ironically, it turned out the surgeon who dealt with me was the same surgeon who did it originally. Very good surgeon. I mean, top of his game. So when it comes to emergency care, the NHS is as good as you get. So the surgeon, top of his game. He saw it. He tried to put a camera down before, and I hate that shit. But he did it, looked at it, and immediately retracted it and said, right, within The following day, I was being prepped for surgery because it was that bad that my airway had literally gone sideways. So I got prepped for surgery during COVID. When they put me under, they had to stick a tube down my throat to keep my airway stable. Then I had a team of anaesthetologists, specialists with me while the surgery was being carried out. Now, again, as part of that surgery, because that I would already had a partial thyroidectomy, so my thyroid on the other side was removed then, so I had no thyroid. The thyroid, obviously, if you're familiar with thyroids, keeps your metabolism in order. It's vitally important to your body health in a number of ways. What I didn't understand at the time is, though they did explain to me before the surgery, is there's a parathyroid gland behind the thyroid that controls the calcium levels in your body. Now, the calcium levels are vitally important to your physical health. Calcium is, I don't know if you're familiar, if you exercise a lot and you get cramps in your muscles. Now, calcium is vitally important to that part of the process of your body. Once your calcium levels drop, you're more prone for your muscles to spasm and go into contraction and literally seize up. So potentially, though, I think that the statistical analysis on this is not high, but potentially you can have a heart attack generated by your heart muscles seizing up. So I was given into the GP's care again during COVID. Now, I'm pretty sure the consultant had said that I required blood tests. So I go and see the consultant about 2 weeks after. And the first question he asked me, how's your blood levels like? And I said, not had a blood test. And I could have seen his face. It was like thunder. So he sent me straight to the hospital blood test to get my blood test done. Then I went to work on night shifts. And as I'm on a night shift job doing a water main diversion, I get a phone call from somebody at the hospital. No explanation. All he says was, go to hospital immediately, right away, A&E. And I went, who is this? What's it about? And then he hung up. And again, I think it was some guy in the bloody blood test clinic. So he hung up. Then it took me about 2 days back into trying to work out who the hell it was. I'd rang the hospital a dozen times and nobody knew what it was about. Eventually, I got somebody who said, your levels are that low, you could literally have a heart attack and die at any moment. Because I felt awful. I mean, I felt absolutely atrocious. So I was being given thyroxine and some small calcium tablets. But because they'd had no blood test after the operation, they didn't know where I was at the levels. Anyway, long story short, I'll go into the local A&E. This is being back in two with the hospital concerned. So I go in on Friday. This is about 3 days after having the emergency phone call. And again, no details. Initially, I thought it was a prank call. Anyway, I'll go in. I clock in at the reception, expecting to wait for about 10 hours. And within 5 minutes, there's a nurse coming up with a bloody wheelchair. And I'm looking at her because I've got a cappuccino at the time. I get my blood test redone and I go up with her into this ward where they put you on a drip. Apparently, my levels were that low. You kind of balance for your calcium levels is between, I think, a top end of 1.9 to about 2.2. Mine were less than 1. So incredibly low. My thyroid levels were massively underneath what they should have been. Again, because I'd had no blood checked by the GP for 3 weeks, and it was only because the consultant had done an emergency blood test that they found out anything. And it took me, after that point, about 3 to 4 months to get my levels right with drugs. Because all you're doing is you're taking thyroxine to kind of rebalance your metabolism. I don't think it's right even now, and this is several years after. But I also have to take the same in calcium, alpha-casidal. So I'm trying to just do this video to say is you need to take care of your own self. You can't rely on GPs because they will do nothing. So if you're in the same position, you need to ensure that you get regular blood tests. I'd still take iodine supplements, but again, that's a personal choice. I'm not a doctor. I can't say that that's a choice for everybody, but I personally take vitamin D and iodine daily now. And I've managed to keep my thyroid levels and my calcium levels consistent ever since. But while I mention iodine and thyroid conditions, I'm like 100% sure that a lot of people with thyroid conditions in the UK are just simply iodine deficient to levels that are just not tested in the UK. We don't test it. The UK see it as a third world problem. But food is not as iodine. Certain foods are higher iodine levels than others. So seafoods are rich in iodine, seaweed's rich in iodine, certain foods are rich in iodine. And I think farming now has depleted all naturally occurring vitamins and elements in the food sources to a point where, unless you're eating specific types, you're just not getting the iodine in your blood. So they don't normally do it, but you can get tests to check your iodine levels. And if you've got a thyroid condition, I would insist that you get your iodine levels checked. And screw them. Even if you have to go private and get it checked. You'll probably find that your thyroid issues are as much to do with iodine deficiency as they are with anything else. But hey, I'm just giving my personal experience just so hopefully it can be helpful to other people. Anyway, thanks. Bye now.